If some of us get really far behind this quarter, that might not just be an opportunity, it might be a suggestion that I send to your parents saying, if you see that your kid is struggling to get their homework done, bring them to school at 7:15 or 7:30 and we can get extra work done. You should have a piece of graph paper. If you don't, you didn't do step 1 on the board. Do it now. On the top of that graph paper, you're going to write chapter 4, revisions, corrections, whatever synonym you want to use for revisions or corrections. What we're about to do right now is not how you go from progressing to mastery. This is how you go from progressing to mastery. Yeah, you don't have it yet because I don't want you working on it while we're doing stuff together in class. You'll have this before you leave. I will wait to put your test grades into MAP until tomorrow. So if you get me this like first thing tomorrow, your grade could go in as a mastery, right? Or if you do it today at like AOR Extensions, right? Get it turned in as soon as you can. It's only 7 questions. And the questions are almost identical to what we do on this test. So if you pay attention now and take good notes, this shouldn't be that difficult. So the trick with taking good notes on revisions is you don't have to write down everything, but if you don't write down enough, your revisions aren't really worth anything. So my advice is on any question that you miss, I would write down the original and not like the words where it says using what you learned. I would write down 7 plus 3 times x plus 2 like we have on the test paper. And some of you might be looking at your test and like, wait, did he grade everything? I mean, I went through and graded everything. I didn't necessarily put marks on everything because some of you were obviously not done with problems. But we, on our graph paper, are going to show how to do these correctly. We might not do every single one together, because again, correcting this is not how you get to mastery. Doing the other one is how we get to mastery. So we might not do part B, because it's actually the easiest one here. Guys, the trick with part A here is what are we not going to do first? See? We do not do this first because if we remember our order of operations and how we write it correctly, it's parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, then add, subtract. So guys, remember, you could actually rearrange this problem using our commutative property and write your plus 7 after. Like, you could move it around so that your brain doesn't get confused. You could write your plus 7 after the thing that we're actually going to start with doing. So what are we going to actually start with doing? We start by doing the...
parentheses.
We can't do the parentheses because we cannot add x plus 2. So you're right, we start by thinking about the parentheses, but we cannot do them.
But it doesn't turn into 2x?
No, because x... Guys, we did this together, and we practiced it on your homework. You didn't take it seriously. And I'm sorry to just be that honest about it. You'll remember this when I show it to you, and be like, oh, but that means you didn't learn it well enough to remember it on your own. These are our x's. What do our 1's look like? Squares. Are these the same tiles that I can put together? No! You cannot add non-like terms, which is why my reminder at the beginning of the test involved the words like terms. Sorry if this was hard. It's your fault. Like, I'm sorry that it was difficult. I'm sorry that you didn't do your homework, but I don't control that. So what we draw, whether we draw the arrows on top or whether we draw the arrows on bottom, doesn't matter. You gotta draw the arrows, guys. So I should see your fingers moving. I should see your pencils attached to paper moving in arcing lines. That tells us the multiplication that needs done. Each arrow is a multiplication. I like my arrows on the bottom, so I'm going to erase the top arrows just so it doesn't look so busy. What we did in class was we practiced if I have x plus 2, x plus 2, x plus 2, right? 3 groups of x plus 2. I think we literally did this exact problem in class. How many x's do I actually have? 3 x's. If I have 2 3 times, How many 1s do I actually have? 6, and then I also have plus 7. Can I add 3x and 6? No, they're not like. Can I add 6 and 7?
Yes.
Yeah. So this becomes 3x plus 13. Questions on A. A was actually the toughest one from number 1. B and C, all you do is distribute. So here's your answers for B and C. If we distribute that 2 times, we get 6x, and we get negative 8. If we distribute that 7 times, 7 times 2n, 14n. 7 times 3, 21. You can write down as much as you want to write down, and this video is going to be posted, so you'll be able to get back to these answers. But if you don't put anything on this graph paper, it's not going to help you when you go to do the follow-up, right?
I did it in a weird way, and it doesn't really make sense now, but I still got negative 8.
I'm going to look at what you did.
Somehow I got 2 times negative 4. But I still got negative 8.
I think you only did the second part of the distribution, but you forgot to do the first part. And you just forgot to do the 2 times 3y. So that's part of the answer, but it's not the right. Like over here, you got part of the right answer. You forgot about the 2 and part.
Yeah, you were only doing like half the problem. All right, B and C, all we do is distribute. So moving on to number 2. Questions on 1? Number 2 involved more negatives. Let's do C, but then I'll show you A and B in a moment. C, can I do 9 minus 3 first?
Yeah.
No! Order of operations says addition pretty much comes last. Unless it's inside parentheses. Can I do x plus 2? No! They're not like terms. So guys, what we really have, if I go to rewrite this better, negative 3 times x plus 2, and what's this number? A positive 9, right? So positive 9. This is not minus 3. Okay, it kind of looks like minus 3. Some people call it minus 3. Depending on what we're doing, it is minus 3. But I can't do the minus. I can't do it. I'm not allowed. So it's negative. We don't want to call it minus. We want to call it negative. When we distribute, what's negative 3 times x?
Negative 3x.
What's negative 3 times 2?
Negative 6.
Negatives, careful, we're multiplying. You just added them. Which of these numbers are allowed to combine with each other?
Negative 3. Wait.
The negative 6 and the 9, because the x value is all alone. It has no other x values. The negative 6 and the 9. So I still have negative 3x and what else?
3.
Plus positive 3. And then there's your answers for A and B. If you just want to look at when we distribute the multiplication, because we cannot do inside the parentheses. You cannot add non-like terms. Guys, 1, 2, and 3 were the most missed problems from the test. I don't know that they should have been the hardest. I think they were what we've done kind of most recently. But after that, I think especially because the help I gave you up here, the other pages were not as tough as these. It felt like when I graded them. Questions? Draw the arrows. Guys, and on your follow-up, in the directions, I tell you, draw the arrows. I try to remind you every time I can. I try to make your life easier. So, can I combine x's and y's? No. So, if I was you, I'd get a highlighter. Highlight your x's one color. Okay, both my x's are yellow. Both of my x's are positive. We're only going to do a couple of these, by the way. So what do I get if I do 5x plus 32x? 37x. That's the highlighter still. Now, what is this number?
Negative 8y.
Negative 8. y. What is this number?
Negative 17y.
When you put a bad guy with another bad guy.
And make a bad guy.
Guys, I'm trying to use an analogy to make this make sense, and you just aren't even thinking. When you think about a superhero movie, when two bad guys like meet up at the coffee shop or whatever, do they magically have a change of heart and want to go like give out candy to? No, they're bad, and there's more of them together. They're a bigger bad. So if 17 bad combines with 8 bad, not everyone, dude. We get a bigger. That's still highlighter. So I'm gonna say and, but guys, it's negative. Negative 25y. Now, did anyone see what I did? Or like, okay, I thought I was clever.
All the numbers in the question are the same.
All of these are the same. Look at them.
32.
If I put my A with A and my B with B, negative 8, negative 17, that gets me negative 25. Positive 5, positive 32 gets me positive 37. Negative 8 and negative 17, positive 32, positive, negative 8 and negative 17, positive 5. Guys, they're all the same. It's just making you practice. N's do not combine with N's. A's do not combine with B's. X's do not combine with Y's. They're not like safe.
Oh, I have a question about this one because, I was really confused about how you got the plus, 37x plus negative 20.
So you could write that as 37x minus. I do not like subtraction. So you could write this like this. But the reason why that happened was this y is negative. This y is negative. When two bad guys get together, not multiplication, right? This is not multiplication. Two bad guys get together, they're still bad. What you're mixing up is the opposite of a bad guy. A negative times a negative. That makes positive, which we can check our posters if we need to. Above that whiteboard, the orange and green and pink, those are our quick reference. We can check those if we need to. All right, we got to keep moving on. If people want more help, come see me at AO or Extensions. Guys, in your question, by the way, if you want highlighters, the bins are back there, and there's a whole thing full of highlighters, and a lot of you have your own highlighters. Cost per tulip. I would highlight cost per tulip. And I would even maybe write it on your graph paper that we're working on right now, that some of you are working on, and some of you, I think it's just out there for decoration. Per means what? Divide. Per always. Guys, in percent, it means a division has happened. In per item, like a unit price, it's 35 cents per item, a division has happened. Per tells us divide. What's cost in America at least? Dollars. And tulips, number of tulips. You have to divide in that order. Order matters. You'll get two different answers if you switch the order. So when we go to figure out cost per tulip, it's the cost divided by the number of tulips. Is the whole world nice math? No. So when you get messy math, like 4 divided by 7, when you did this is messy math, you gotta round it. You gotta round it. So it's really 4, 7, 1, so it should round down, but if you decided to round it up, that's up to you. And so your dozen price, $6.84 if you use the 57 cents, or $6.96 if you rounded up and did 58 cents. I wasn't quick enough to take a picture. I just also didn't care. My arms were full. So I was at Menards. Menards is having a 50% off sale right now. An item that is $19.99. Okay, what's that really cost?
20.
$20. When they go 50% off, the 50%, and there was like a little sign, which also made me crazy. Guys, one of these days I'm going to get kicked out of a store. Hopefully this is not true, but one of these days I'm going to get kicked out of a store because they literally had a sign to show people how to do 50% off. It makes me want to quit the world. And now, like, don't think of that negatively. Like, please don't self-harm. That's not a good thing. But guys, what is 50% off? It's half! Why are we showing people how to
People are
It's
stupid.
just
That's so
It's just 10
For a moment, I was like, I'm going to take all these signs. I'm going to take all these signs and make people think. I'm going to make people do math. And then I was like, no, I'm with my wife. I get in trouble. And I just went and bought some dog toys. But for real, they round up. They round up. When you do math at grocery stores and stuff, like most of the time they're going to be rounding up. So what's half of $19.99? Well, it's actually 10 because they're going to round you up. So you could use 57 if you want, or a lot of stores would actually round it up to 58. As soon as you hit the next penny at any amount, any decimal amount, because this would actually be 5714. 4 is the next number. That shouldn't round up, but a lot of stores, their program in the computer rounds it up. So that would say 58 cents per flower.
What do they even do?
To make money. And what are they there to do? Make money. We'll come back to this if we have time. Guys, there's like 6 different ways to solve this, because you can use whatever units you want. We can come back to this, but if you really want to see the answers, Old May was fastest, and by the way, this is feet per hour. I think I wrote the wrong letters here. I think I did feet per hour. Yeah. Old May's fastest, Lightning is second, and Zippy is third. I didn't really take that question into consideration on did you get mastery or not. I should have probably changed the order and put this last because I'm trying to train you guys to skip what is too difficult for now and come back to it. You do not have to do assessments in order. Mr. Combs! Yeah, that's a typo. I don't need that extra S, by the way. I don't know if I changed it this year, but I do not need that extra S.
Nope, you didn't
Let's
change.
go there.
Guys, if I was you, and this still is not a good habit, I would get another piece of graph paper right now, and I would put this on it. What we've been doing pretty much all year is proportional solving. This top is not attached. If you've ever wondered, do I have ADD? Yes, that just distracted me a lot. So, what we set up is a fraction with our 2 labels. It doesn't matter what's on top as long as we agree top to top. So what I'm going to set up for Combs, and I'm just going to put miles on top because a lot of times we have miles on top. They gave us 468 miles, 18 gallons. Guys, if you did not get this problem right, you should definitely be writing this down. What's the other thing they give us? Wayne?
How far he goes in that, like, that he goes 754 miles?
Yeah, 754 miles. Where do you think that would go in the other fraction, top or bottom? Why?
Because, it's going, like, for, like, on the top one, it's 468 miles per, like, 18 gallons.
Yeah, it's making the labels agree. You got to make your labels agree. So we don't know what's on bottom, so we need to figure out this arrow. But how do we figure out that arrow using the top? It's gonna be multiplication. But man, I don't know what it is. It's not like times 2 or times 3. It's not nice. If I don't know how to multiply, Don, I can't tell if that's a hint or not. Okay, if I don't know how to multiply, we divide. Guys, you might want to make a little note off to the side here. We do 754 divided by 468, and that's how we figure out this number, which is like 1.61. It's ugly. So don't write it that, like, don't actually, we don't need to do this here. I mean, it's gonna happen. But what do I do instead of actually trying to use that messy number like on paper? Safe?
Round it up.
No, because that's going to get us a not accurate answer. That's a good suggestion. Like, that's what we would have done probably in 6th grade. But check it. If we do 754 divided by 468, it's a gross number. But we know that's the number that's going to multiply down here. So what does that 1.61111 need to multiply by? 18. So what we need to do is just hit times. It grabs that number. And if we just do times 18, oh, now we get a nice answer of 29 gallons, which makes sense because he didn't drive twice as far, right? We shouldn't be double. This is not double, right? We can tell that because 400 doubled would be 800. So we should not be doubling. Guys, solving proportions is the number one thing that we're supposed to learn this year. So if you get that wrong on a mastery, expect to get a progressing and be told to correct it because we need to be getting good at solving proportions. That's why like the next 4 or 5 problems are all solving proportions. So if you want to see my answer key version, I just didn't write out the work, right? I just didn't write out the work. Same thing with Pettigrew and her cupcakes. It doesn't matter what we put on top or bottom as long as we make the labels match. So if I say 4 cupcakes takes how long? I don't know why some of us are looking like we don't need to write this down. A lot of us did not very well on this test. A lot of us did not very well. What's the first thing we're asked to figure out? How many cupcakes in
15 minutes.
Hold on.
Oh, in an hour.
In 60 minutes.
Yeah, an hour, but since we're already talking in minutes, let's keep talking in minutes. And like Safe said, 60 minutes. How do I go from 15 to 60? Times 4. So that's what happens up here.
16.
And we get 16 cupcakes. Questions on that part?
Yeah, compared to like the other ones with like the not nice numbers, this one was relatively.
This one's pretty nice, right?
Yeah.
Now, this I can think about is also 1 hour. And what's the next question we get asked? Just shout it out.
How many?
How long
What do
is
you
it?
do?
80.
5 hours, right? Or no, wait, sorry, 80 cupcakes, my bad. The answer we get is 5 hours. So 80 cupcakes needs to be up here. What if I don't know how to multiply to go from 16 to 80? Divide. So 80 divided by 16, oh, it's nice also. It's 5. So either you could have gotten 300 minutes, that's correct, or 5 hours.
Wait, but
Because 300 minutes is 5 hours. Yeah.
I didn't do 16 times 5. I did I took 4 and 4 over 15, and I just times it by 20. Is
Okay,
that?
that also works. Math, you got options. So math is awesome. All right. Keeping on. My brother, real story. My brother Brad used to deliver physical paper newspapers on a bicycle. So if we break it down how many he can do in 1 hour, and then we can build it up, how long it would take him to go to 120. Again, nicer numbers here. I was trying to, I wrote these problems. I was trying to be a little bit nicer, but if you don't know how to solve proportions, it doesn't matter how nice the numbers are. You got to know what you're doing. Number 9. Guys, doesn't matter what's on top or bottom as long as you make a match. The tricky part here is how do I go from 6 to 27 if I don't know what to multiply by?
You divide.
Divide. That gets us 4.5, so we multiply by 4.5. If you don't know what to multiply, you divide backwards. Questions? That's about the longest trip I've planned on my bike, about 20-ish miles down to downtown and then back up. So if you thought I'm full of crap, no, I've actually ridden that far. One summer I got really into riding and I was doing some distance rides. This is totally made up. But I hope one of you went to Miss Austin and asked her if she loves trains. Because she probably forgot about last year. I asked her, I was like, hey, can I put you on my test and say that you like model trains? And she's like, do you know that I do? Or do you like, she said something funny like, you don't know I don't like model trains. And I was like, well, do you like model trains? And she's like, but if our Trainiac has a 42-foot long actual and the scale of it is 6 inches, well, what is it for every 1 inch? 7 feet. Right? Every 1 inch is 7 feet. Or you could have also gotten away with the answer of 84, because if you go inches to inches, how many inches are in 7 feet? There are 84 inches in 7 feet. So you could have also said the scale is 1 to 84. But if you use labels, you can just say 1 inch to 7 feet or 7 feet to 1 inch. So then down here, if the actual train would be 182 feet, how do we go from the one to the next? Well, if we don't know what to multiply, we divide. And we find out that gives us a 26 that we need to multiply by. Questions? Come on. Scale factor. A lot of us got this one. It's times 4. Right? If we compare the triangles, it's times 4. So we can probably just keep moving on. Guys, start with what you're given. It doesn't matter what we put on top or bottom, as long as we make the labels match. So how do I go from 1 to 3.75? We don't even need to. It's times 3.75. I started at 1. If you start at 1 to get to your new number, you gotta multiply by your new number. Questions?
Wait. Are we allowed to write on the test or no?
Yeah, I want your original test back just to see what you did on your graph paper, but the thing that I'm gonna grade is the paper you don't have yet.
And
How
like,
you go from progressing to mastery is a paper you don't have yet.
are we able to like take the test with us when
Yes.
we take the
Yes. Yes. Also, this is all recorded, so even if I didn't let you take your test, you could just go to my YouTube. Oh yeah, Ezekiel, I record all my classes. This red and white border tells us that I am actually recording and have not forgotten to do it today, and then it'll be uploaded by like lunchtime. So if you're ever absent, you actually don't have to be absent. Guys, I made a big thing about the difference between x and x squared. Right? When we were working with the algebra tiles, they're rigid, right? They look like they're a certain size. And we talked about how that's not necessarily true. This is just how big they are right now. But that x is able to change. Right? The biggest difference, though, is what shape is this?
Rectangle.
A rectangle. And x squared?
Square.
It's a square. Because that's what squared means.
square?
X versus x squared. One is x by x. The other is x by 1. Right, so however you wrote your answer or drew your picture or whatever.
You square.
I know, I'm such a square.
So funny.
So then, perimeter area. Guys, for area, you could have just counted. Right, how many x's, how many 1s. Perimeter gets a bit tougher. Especially for 15. Perimeter gets a bit... 15's on the next slide. Any questions on 14? We can kind of walk around. All those labels are not that difficult.
Wait, can we look at the? Wait, can you scroll down a little so I can see the perimeter? If that's okay.
4x plus 14. What? That's my watch, because teachers are constantly texting.
Why? Shouldn't they
The
be?
most
teaching?
recent message came from Mr. Cabilo.
Amazing. Wait,
The one before that was from Miss Howard. Yes,
Miss
teachers
Howard.
are constantly texting.
But
Guys,
they're-
we are in more communication than is probably healthy, honestly.
What
When
do
you're
you
at
even
school-
talk about?
You guys.
Yeah, we talk about like
Who's off the handle today? Who had a bad night? Who we need to know about? Has some family situation going on? Who needs to... Like, Mr. Cabilo is often esports stuff. He's like, hey, can I see so-and-so to fill out a form or whatever? 15. This gets tricky because there are multiple ways you can look at this. But if I look at just this section, well, guys, this, I know math, that sounds like trick. This yellow line would be how long? X, right? If I bring it over here, I know that's X. If I bring it out here, I know that's X. So when I bring it over here and I take that little chunk away from it, it's now X minus 1.
I know, but you don't even need to do that because, like,
Okay, you're right, but it all depends on how your brain solves it. So what Emery's about to try to argue is, okay, we could do that X minus 1, but then we pick up an extra 1 right here. So now your X minus 1 and your extra plus 1, like, yeah, you can do it different ways. But my brain likes to go a piece at a time and say, okay, this is X minus 1. This is 3. This is another 1, right? Like, I break them all apart.
So that's your X.
So perimeter area, check them. On the follow-up, it is easier. Questions?
Nice save.
Wayne.
Go back to 12.
Mm-hmm. But what's your question?
About 12.
But what's your question?
I just wanted to see 12. I didn't like.
I want to work on you guys being able to ask questions before, like, just looking at the stuff, of being able to tell me what you are struggling with. So I want to understand what is making things difficult.
Everything. It's like.
Other questions, things you want to talk about again real quick? We got a few minutes. Did you catch a typo and now I owe you candy? No, there are 4 X's. So remember, this minus 1 does not impact the fact that X is there. So that's a positive X, positive X, positive X, positive X. So even though there's minus 1, it still has to start with it was X. Then we took 1 away from it. But the X is still there. It's just X minus 1. Now, if we know what X is, then I can go farther with this question. But if we don't know what X is, we're stuck. Real quick to make sure we get these. And guys, obviously, I'm probably going to have to shift the week, but I decided I did not want to put off talking about the, like the test results or whatever.
Oh, this is much shorter.
Something there. You need here. Put your name on this first things first, because I did not print, like, I maybe printed 2 extras, but if I find this, I need to be able to get it back to who needs it.
Wait, how many kids in your grade got every single question correct on my test?
Nobody got every single question correct from the test.
Did that make you sad?
No, I make my test difficult.
Oh.
There were a few people that only made a couple mistakes.
Wait, Mr. Hudson, wasn't there one
Wait,
test?
you didn't get to, you did get to.
My brother said you had one test, but everyone had none.
Yeah, maybe, possibly.
Not this grade.
Yes,
Not this
yes.
grade. This grade is
Only
never
failure
gonna
in
have
math.
everybody. This grade is never gonna have anybody.
Yeah.
Like never.
So, how I want this to come back to me is you have your original mastery and your graph paper now. I would not attach all of them together currently. Because what you should be doing with the work that we just did is looking at that graph paper when you go to do these problems that are very similar. Then once everything's done, hey, look up here. Then once everything's done, the follow-up goes on top of your old test. And you turn it back in. You do not need to do anything else with your old test. The follow-up is what you're doing now. Okay, this is how you go from progressing to mastery. Questions?
Are we leaving right now?
So obviously I'm going to have to shift my calendar a little bit. We'll try to make up the time somehow. But obviously like 511 is probably still going to be homework tomorrow. Sam? Staple. Like, yeah, to turn back into the bin. So you can staple together now if you want. But if you're going to do that, put the follow-up on top. I like to see the new stuff first. Sorry, for a second I was going to say doesn't matter, but I would like it on the front. Just easier for me. Alright, well, I'd rather spend time making sure you understand your mistakes than just keep moving on. So, guys, AO and extensions. If the follow-up is difficult, do not turn it in thinking your answers are wrong. Come get help. Work with your friends. Use CPM. Use the internet. Use me. Use your parents. Use your siblings. Use your brain. Use
My sibling.
use the other teachers. They can do this stuff too.